Hello, I'm Qualifiers, and it's time for a review I've been both anticipating and dreading for a while now. We're going to talk about the new Taylor Swift album, Reputation. So, I want to start by getting the elephant out of the room here and talking a little bit about Taylor Swift's public persona versus the things she depicts in her music. And I do acknowledge that probably a lot of these songs are at least based on real events, but I'm not sure how much it matters. Taylor Swift's real-life, day-to-day petty drama and the nuances of that drama is probably a lot more boring and a lot less artful than anything that ends up in the music, and it's not really Taylor Swift's job to be a memoirist. That's not who she is. She's more like a soap opera writer, and every scenario that she depicts, all the petty revenge and betrayal, is punched up to be as juicy and enticing as possible for the listener. She plays off these archetypes that we all know of, like the nice girl and the bad boy and the frenemy who is going to stab you in the back, and she uses those to get our attention and to make something that, while it looks a little bit like real life, it's really more of a genre piece. It's set in the fictional world that we all imagine of celebrity drama. And I respect Taylor's ability to construct these scenes, construct these stories, and appeal to people's emotions as effectively as she does. I'd also argue that this is something that she's been doing throughout her career, that while the scenarios described on albums like Fearless and Speak Now might have been a little bit more rooted in most people's day-to-day lives, that there's always been a melodramatic one-dimensionalness about feelings that she talks about and describes, and that this is why she's so good at talking about things like falling in love for the first time or getting your heart broken, because at those times we experience those things in a very melodramatic and overblown and somewhat unnuanced way, and she's able to package up those really potent feelings and put them into music. That said, I think that Taylor Swift has been losing a little bit of that songwriting magic recently. Her last two albums were wildly inconsistent, in my opinion. Yeah, you did have great songs on Red, great songs on 1989, but for every song that had a consistent atmosphere that could capture and distill a moment and present it to you, you had another song that felt mechanical and stiff and emotionless. For every Wildest Dreams, you had a Bad Blood, which I think is probably the worst song Taylor Swift has ever recorded, just for the record there. So I was a little nervous coming into this album, and I got even more nervous when she released some of the singles to lead up to it. The thing is that for Taylor Swift's particular brand of melodrama to work, the songs have to create the atmosphere, create the tension, get us invested and draw us in. And a lot of the time she does that best is when she has some natural swell to the instrumentation, some richness, some depth, some melodramatic instrumentation to match the melodramatic lyrics. But in my opinion, the first two singles just failed to provide any of that. Look What You Made Me Do is probably the most egregious of them, because there are good moments on this song. There are some points at which I feel my adrenaline start to rush. I start to get excited about what's going to come next. For example, the very tense violin matched with the smoky, ominous piano chords leading up into the chorus is a really great moment, but every time I feel something start to build and I start to feel invested in the song, it completely cuts that momentum and changes to do something completely different and often pretty ugly. Case in point would be the chorus of this song, which is just a very minimalist, bassy synth beat and drums with Taylor Swift saying in an auto-tuned robot voice, "Look what you made me do." And I know this is maybe supposed to sound edgy or dark, but it doesn't match at all with the rest of the song. And what it really ends up sounding like is just a mess. And I think the lyrics on this song also kind of failed. It is a revenge song in a way. It's about Taylor Swift turning evil or gaining a new dark personality because of the bad things people have done to her, the way the media has attacked her and portrayed her as bad. But there's no drama to get invested in. There's no human element to pull us in here. It's all very meta and abstract, and it doesn't work for the kind of visceral storyteller that Taylor Swift is. There is some human drama on the song Gorgeous, which is all about Taylor Swift being a little mad at and a little intimidated by this guy because he's so gorgeous. She can't even look at him or approach him. She feels so overwhelmed. And Taylor Swift is purposely playing maybe a little ditzy or pouty or stupid on this song, and it doesn't work. Taylor's mean girl persona works when it works because she's sassy and smart and confident. She's kind of like, to make another Riverdale reference, she's like a Cheryl Blossom or like a Regina George. And on this song Gorgeous, she comes off just as petty and shallow and mean in a way, because she's essentially getting annoyed at this guy while she's also objectifying him. But there's just nothing charming or charismatic about it. It's kind of an ugly song. So after being horribly disappointed by most of the big singles, how did I feel about the rest of the album? Did it live down to my expectations that it would be Taylor Swift's worst project yet? Well, fortunately, I get to breathe a sigh of relief because this album, especially in its deeper cuts, plays to what Taylor Swift does best and actually ends up being a return to form. It's still a little bit of a mess, especially when Taylor Swift decides to embrace pop instrumentation and trap hi-hats and warping synths that end up making her songs sound more mechanical and less flowing than they otherwise should. But a lot of these deep cuts are excellent examples of Swift writing and composing some of her best songs in years. The album gets off to kind of a rough start with the songs Ready for It, Endgame, and I Did Something Bad, all of which employ these really flimsy, warping, one-dimensional synths that do not support Taylor Swift's voice. The thing about Taylor Swift's brand of melodrama is that it works best when there are a lot of layers of bombastic instrumentation to support the kind of cheesy things that she might be saying in the lyrics, and the synths here just aren't doing it. But after the rough patch of these first 3 songs, the album starts getting gradually better and better. You get some great bassiness on the low end of Don't Blame Me, which has a huge, cathartic, bombastic chorus with instrumentation, these echoing piano keys, these low bassy synths that actually back up Taylor Swift's voice and make this song almost gospel-like. It reminds me a lot of that Hozier song, Take Me to Church. And I think King of My Heart might be the best composed song that Taylor Swift has ever written. It starts out pretty minimalist. There's an echoing snap on top of a pretty basic piano phrase, but the song gradually adds layers of instrumentation to swell into this rich and explosive chorus. And yeah, the synths are still here, they're bubbling and warping under the surface, but you also get this really smooth gliding violin and these guitar accents. And the way all this instrumentation locks together is so beautiful that it really does mimic the feeling of falling in love, and everything seemed to fall into place. It has a great rhythm to it. And this high continues onto the next song, Dress, which is probably one of the sexiest songs that Taylor Swift has ever written. It has this soaring violin on it, and the song structure here goes through multiple phases and just glides between segments. There are no messy transitions, the sound doesn't have to cut out, and a synth doesn't have to bubble up. No, it's incredibly smooth and incredibly classy. I also wanted to mention the song This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things, because I think it's a great example of a petty Taylor Swift revenge song gone right. This song just feels so effortless and smooth and bouncy that you can sort of vicariously feed off of the pleasure that you can tell Taylor Swift is taking in writing this person off. And a lot of the reason this song works, again, is the instrumentation, the composition, which feels really fully realized. There are these hits of bass which make the song maybe a little bit trap influenced, but they balance out really nicely against a tinkling melody and some violin that give the song some real swell to it. And the chorus here, it's not just a snippet of synth that sounds vaguely catchy, it's not just a hook, it's a fully realized melody. It actually has a catchy melody that you can sing along to, and that helps a lot. It tilts much more towards the more fully realized songwriting of someone like Lorde, and much less to the kind of cheap-sounding earworm rock of a band like Imagine Dragons. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention the song New Year's Day, which is a really subtle and poignant piano ballad that I think is a little more nuanced than a lot of the other songs here. It deals with feeling melancholy or nostalgic even when you're in the midst of a great relationship, because you can feel the moments passing by and you don't want it to ever end and you fear that it might someday end. And it's a little bit heartbreaking, especially because it's surrounded by songs about fleeting relationships that end in really ugly ways with betrayal and pettiness and drama. And Taylor Swift is so great at capturing these moments in very short-lasting relationships where everything seems great, it seems like it will last forever, and the extra awareness that it probably won't last forever that infuses this song with so much melancholy really makes it a standout on the album. And I hope that you guys will check out this album, give it a listen. It is a little bit of a mess, so I think I can only justify giving it a decent 6 out of 10, light to decent 6 out of 10, but the stretch of songs from Getaway Car all the way to the end of this album, it really is magnificent, and it shows off what a great songwriter Taylor Swift can be. And I hope that she continues to hone her talents, go in this direction, and maybe this messy transitional phase of her career will be over and she'll be able to settle into being a great, consistent, fulfilling songwriter that I know she can be.